Okay, I'm Paul Johnson, and I am one of the elected board members of the Bastrop Central Appraisal District. And at the last meeting yesterday, they passed a resolution to censure me. And I wanted to address the allegations that they made in that. And of course, they won't let me address them at the meeting, but um, I'll address them here. It's a very long resolution. Took, I don't know, 20 minutes, it seems like, for her to read it. And to address them, I'm going to break it into smaller parts. I think it's going to end up being 8 episodes. And I'll read one section of their allegations, and then I'll make a response to that or those particular allegations. So we're going to start at the beginning. And this is the resolution. And I'm going to read the first paragraph. Whereas members of the board of directors of the Bastrop Central Appraisal District are expected to conduct themselves in a manner that upholds the integrity and dignity of the district. According to the policy manual for the board, board members shall be independent, impartial, and responsible to the property owners of Bastrop County and shall not use their office for personal gain. So that's not really anything for me to respond to there. Next paragraph. Whereas Paul Johnson has a history of making baseless legal claims against the district and its employees and was declared to be a vexatious litigant by the 21st District Court on March 1st, 2023. The order declaring Paul Johnson to be a vexatious litigant has been upheld on appeal. That was in the Johnson versus Tepper case. So I will talk a little bit about my vexatious litigant status. I was declared a vexatious litigant in a case that didn't have anything to do with the property tax or the appraisal district. But in that case, it was a case against Matthew Tepper. Well, actually, yes, it was a case I had filed on him for lying under oath at an appraisal review board hearing. So during the course of that lawsuit, the local district judge, Carson Campbell, did find me to be a vexatious litigant. And this is the judge's ruling that he made from the bench. He said, in reading the Crump case, and I call it the Seraphine case, it's actually Seraphine versus Crump. But he said, in reading the Crump case, one thing I do want to note is that this hasn't been published, and this case is subject to revision or withdrawal. So much of what I'm doing is making my decision on what I've read in this case as advisory. And if my relying on it as advisory and the court later changes, then my decision may well have to change also. And what he's talking about is this Seraphine versus Crump case that Mr. Tepper showed him, provided to him, says that you can count one litigation as 2 or 3 or 4, or maybe even more. And in order to be declared a vexatious litigant, you have to have 5 litigations that have been finally determined against you. So using this way of calculating, and what they do in this Serafin case is you can count the trial court, you can count the appeal, you can count if it's appealed to the Texas Supreme Court or the United States Supreme Court, or you can call out all of those, count all those separately, and you can also count any interlocutory rulings or any interlocutory appeals separately. So using that counting method, and at that time I did not have 5 cases finally determined against me. There was one, but nowhere near enough that I would be qualified as a vexatious litigant. And the judge made his ruling, based on this way of counting. Yep, you're over 5, so I'm going to find you a vexatious litigant. So that's what he did. Well, later on, much later on, the Texas Supreme Court overturned that case. And I'm going to read this part of their ruling. Because an appeal and a petition for review continue the action brought in the trial court, they do not count as separate civil actions and thus separate litigations under section 11.054, which is the vexatious litigant statute. Petitioner therefore did not have 5 prior litigations determined adversely to her, which the statute required for petitioner to be found a vexatious litigant on this record. We grant the petition for review, reverse the Court of Appeals judgment, render judgment denying the motions to declare petitioner a vexatious litigant. So that's what happened in that case. And that case was overturned. Well, the judge had said if that case gets overturned, his ruling might have to change also, but they have refused to overturn it or even reconsider it or anything. So my name is on the list for that vexatious litigant ruling, which I never really qualified, still don't qualify by the way they're supposed to do it. That has been declared now by the Texas Supreme Court. But the Bastrop Central Appraisal District also filed on me to be a vexatious litigant. And that one did involve a property tax protest, and it did involve the Bastrop Central Appraisal District. So they filed that, and of course the local judge found me to be vexatious. And when I appealed it, the Court of Appeals overturned it. They said, no, I'm not a vexatious litigant. I'll read some of the what the Court of Appeals said in my case, where the Bastrop Central Appraisal District had me found to be a vexatious litigant. Having reviewed the record and the parties' arguments, the court holds that there was reversible error in the order. Therefore, the court reverses the trial court's order, declaring appellant a vexatious litigant. So the Court of Appeals, in the case that the Bastrop Central Appraisal District claimed against me, it was thrown out as being baseless. Well, here in their censure letter, they accused me of having the history of making baseless legal claims. And you can see by the actual evidence that they are the ones that have been making the vexatious litigant claims. So I'll go on one more paragraph. Next one says, whereas Paul Johnson has repeatedly posted on social media using inflammatory language to allege that the district and its chief appraiser have engaged in illegal and fraudulent behavior on issues relating to his own cases. Based on the advice of counsel and prior court decision involving Paul Johnson, the board finds that Paul Johnson's claims are legally wrong and are in actuality merely allegations that he disagrees with certain district policies or actions that affect his own properties. Paul Johnson has made such allegations either with malice or with reckless disregard for the truth or falseness of the allegation, or he should have known that the allegations were baseless. So that's the last one I'm gonna talk to on this episode. But I have never argued when I get on these videos for my own cases or my own appraisals or my own lawsuits. I have only argued against the practices and the policies of the Bastrop Central Appraisal District. When I make these videos, they have been kind of long because I don't just make the statement. I show you the actual evidence. I show you the actual documents that show what they're doing is wrong. And I have never done that to have any benefit to my own cases or for my own property. I've only done it to fix the practices and the policies of the Bastrop Central Appraisal District. So that's all we'll do for today, and we'll come back with another one. Hopefully these will be short enough that you can pay attention, but there are a bunch of allegations, and so it's going to take me, I'm thinking maybe 8 episodes to get through all of those. So see you next time. Thanks.